Welcome to World of Work TV. I'm Allison Avalos, and I'm joined today by Mike Murray of Herman Miller, and we're talking about compensation programs and compensation technology. Mike, can you start off by talking about the importance of compensation as a critical element in the total rewards model at Herman Miller, and then how that led to kind of a shift in the need for technology?
Compensation is a key element in sourcing out and used to source out key talent that we need to attract. And also, more importantly, it is used to retain that key talent. If that isn't aligned correctly with market, then it's a very difficult situation to work out of. So for us, it's pretty critical. And because of that, we needed to make sure that we had the tools available that would help us achieve maintaining our market position, and allowing our managers and supervisors to influence that as well.
Talk about how the importance for your compensation program to be modern, robust, and innovative. Talk about how that aligns to your overall company strategy.
Well, basically, what it does is it allows every level of supervisor, every level of manager to be a part of the compensation process and the pay increase determination decision-making and the visibility of that decision-making. And if you will, it's a very effective way to make sure that the people who are the closest to the situation, the employee, are in a position where they can influence decisions, make recommendations, and from that perspective, really, you've got the best people who are involved with that process. Prior, quite honestly, to implementing our new technology, we really only had about 100 managers that were involved in the process. And now we have roughly 800 of our all managers that are involved with the process. And one of the key fallouts from that, too, is because they are a part of the process, now are much more understanding of compensation programs, the strategy behind those programs, much more than they ever were before.
How did you build the business case for this new technology platform, and what were some of the selection criteria?
Well, very basically, what it came down to is our prior processing tool was built in Notes, and there had been a corporate decision to eliminate all the Notes databases and go to cloud-based software and applications. A key component for any future solution was the fact that we weren't going to basically change any of the major components of our compensation program to accommodate a software that wouldn't accommodate our comp program. A part of the business case was to find a solution that would allow us to accommodate what we already had as a process, allow us to enhance that process, and give us some flexibility as far as including individuals who hadn't been a part of the process because of system constraints, and also to have a scalability where we could expand and use it in all parts of the company at some point along the way. And that was part of, those were some key components, I should say, that drove some of the business case.
You've talked about the uniqueness at Herman Miller and your process, and from talking to you, I understand that some of the verbiage, some of the terminology that our compensation professionals are used to seeing and using is not in use at Herman Miller. Talk a little bit about some of the phrasing that you use when you speak about your compensation program and your pay structures in particular.
Sure. Basically, you're not going to hear the term comp ratio, for example, used within the organization outside of, say, compensation and a few other individuals in HR. And that's because we don't use a midpoint, we don't refer to a midpoint of a pay range in any of the material that we have that shows the pay range for an employee or a pay grade. Our pay ranges are divided into thirds. One is for the developing segment, the middle third is the proficient segment, and the higher upper third is what we call the master segment. The developing segment is reserved for those people who are new to the job, are not quite fully skilled or have the abilities to perform a job at a adequate level. Those who are should be paid in the proficient segment, and it's basically, the proficient segment is the market range not market rate, market range for a job, are those individuals who have all of the skills, the abilities, and are performing at a level that is expected and meeting expectations. Those who are in the master segment of the range typically are those individuals who are high performers, consistently high performers, I should say, and who are high potentials that you really need to pay over market if you're going to retain them. And retention of key talent is very critical in today's heavily competitive marketplace for professionals, and it looks like even now we're starting to look at hourly production as being more competitive as well. Under that pretext, we had to find a system, we had to put a solution in place that would accommodate the way that we design our pay ranges. And most systems really are designed around a midpoint. And in this case, we were able to find one that was adaptable, could look at our ranges, we could use it in that way.
Thinking about 10 years ago when you made that shift to that current system, the typical pay range layout's kind of in half, below midpoint and above midpoint, and you mentioned you've got this divided into thirds. Was that an effort intended to remove a focus on that middle point in the range and you're either above or below, or was it based more on a desire to move away from some of that phrasing, some of the terminology, maybe the confusion that happens outside of compensation when you use some of that terminology?
Actually, if you will, for both. We wanted to get rid of the comp-ease that only people in compensation really love to use as far as terminology, to really allow us to focus on the individual and where they are paid and what their skill development is. If you are involved with an employee, the conversation is more around, if you will, if they're paid in the proficient segment, where they're paid in the proficient segment, and how do I move through the proficient segment or through that market range. It's not a matter of, okay, I'm paid over midpoint, I'm paid under midpoint, and I need to be at midpoint. It's a matter of, okay, where am I paid in the range compared to my performance and my skill development? So if you will, it kind of puts a nice twist on things and puts it more in a language, if you will, in the discussion that is less numerical and more focused on the individual and their job and their performance and where they're paid.
So now that you've got a year or so under your belt with this new technology, looking back, what are some of the things that drove success for you?
There were several things, but I think probably one key element was the fact that in our process of selecting a new tool to put in place, to develop the tool, design it, and if you will, even roll it out, we had a cross-functional team of a lot of different players. It just wasn't an HR tool, it wasn't just a comp tool. We had the people from information technology that provided a lot of technical leadership. We had actually leaders from outside of the HR area that brought in their input and were also a part of the rollout activities. We had HR generalists who were a part of the project team, and they were able to bring into play a lot of the user perspective as we were involved, again, through all of the development process rollout. So having all those people as a part of the team really, I think, helped us as we rolled it out. We had a lot of individuals who were, if you will, embedded in our business units that understood the reason for the change, understood how things were set up, were able to, in some cases, provide their peers expert kind of knowledge, and it wasn't just HR coming in or comp saying, okay, this is how this works. And it really helped us as far as our acceptability of what we rolled out last year. So, as far as a key to success, I'd say just don't make it an HR tool. Don't just make it a comp tool. If you can, broaden out things so that perceptions are that it is a tool for your managers and supervisors to manage pay administration pay increases, that decision-making process.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
For World at Work, I'm Allison Avalos.